Using super to pay your rent. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I have a stein of coffee and I thought we'd have a look at this article from the ABC because it's discussing real estate agents being warned to not encourage people to use their super to pay their rent. Now, that's confused me because I thought the whole point of allowing people to access their super in this situation was to allow them to cover emergency expenses. Wouldn't rent, ensuring there's a roof over the head for your children and family, be one of those emergency expenses? What do you think, guys? Or is this just more evidence that investment properties are going to go up because people won't be paying rent? Because we live in clown world. We really do live in clown world. It's definitely an interesting ride. So, ASIC warns real estate agents against advising tenants to access superannuation to pay their rent. Because you can't kick them out now either, can you? The corporate watchdog has intervened to stop real estate agents advising tenants, I'll zoom in a little bit, struggling to pay their rent to withdraw money from their superannuation, warning that those who do so could face hefty fines and jail times for unlicensed financial advice against people's best interests. What are your best interests? Staying in a home or not? And if the market's crashing, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission has written to real estate institutes in each state, calling on them to pass on the letter to all members as a matter of priority. The action comes after numerous reports of real estate agents demanding that tenants access their superannuation before they will consider rent relief. Well, this is what happens when you allow people to have access to that funds. And I know we're all meant to be in this together, unless, of course, you're a civil servant that's still getting pay rises, even though, in Queensland's case, the state is in tremendous debt and the quality of education hasn't been improving, but you still deserve those pay rises, apparently. So all those greedy landlords, those mum and dads and nurses and teachers, they need to cop not receiving the money. What do you think, guys? It all seems a bit messy because there's so much intervention in the market. The government is locking down on everything. Our freedoms are being restricted. It is just one big mess right now. So, ASIC's Executive Director of Financial Service Enforcement, Tim Mullally, warned in the letter that the actions of the real estate company could breach the Corporations Act. My dealings with ASIC and trying to get them to enforce deregistration of directors that were trading insolvent, which now you're allowed to do because they changed the rules. You're allowed to do that now, has destroyed any confidence I have in that organization. It's just a bureaucratic paper organizing, registration database. Probably could be replaced with a website. Tenants facing financial difficulties need sound financial guidance and potential debt counseling, specifically pointing to them and recommending them to consider the specific possibility of accessing superannuation is likely to amount to a breach of the Act, he wrote. As part of the federal government's epidemic response package, the ATO is putting in place measures to allow people affected by the illness to access their superannuation early, up to $10,000 in 1920 and $10,000 in 2021. Now, I'm not a fan of the whole idea of superannuation. I don't like the idea of government mandating that people save. I would rather people have access to that money and they can do what they want with it. Because where's it going? How much of it is in industry super funds? How many of those funds are controlled by the unions with nice, lucrative board positions? How much is locked in the financial sector? How many of these industry super funds have invested into infrastructure which they can't liquefy, and now lots of people will be making early withdrawals, will cause issues with the stock market? So, again, superannuation is just another intervention in the market. Because young people, they don't even consider that their money. But it's part of the package as an employer that you have to give. And they'll want to increase it as well, increase superannuation. Some of the government civil servants, the deals they get in super is just ludicrous. Just ludicrous. Oh well, a lot of them would have lost it anyway because they probably weren't watching it close enough. ASIC is aware that some real estate agents are advising tenants who are unable to pay their rent or who may find themselves in such a situation in future to consider applying for early release of their superannuation, the regulator wrote, describing this as of significant concern. But why else would they be releasing it? To allow people to pay their debts? Isn't this... They're going to have to pay this back anyway, aren't they? And how many people have just a small amount in super? You know, under 20 grand or something that isn't going to make a difference to them when they retire, rather than let them have access to it. How many people are struggling to get enough together to deposit in a house, to even buy a home, and they've got all this money sitting there in super? Despite Prime Minister Scott Morrison promising a 6-month moratorium on residential evictions, ABC Radio's AM program found some people who had lost their jobs had been getting letters from their real estate agents urging them to consider using their superannuation to pay the rent. When the illness restrictions saw Chris, who asked for his surname to be held over fear for his tenancy, laid off from his job, the Brisbane hospitality worker tried to stay positive about his prospects of keeping a roof over his head. But then an email from his real estate agent this week got him worried. I received a letter basically stating, please check your super, check your flatmates, any missed payments, any late payments will go straight on your rental record. So it was kind of like a thinly veiled threat that despite what the government's saying, you've still got responsibilities. We don't care about your plight, he said. Well, yeah. Despite what the government's saying, people still have responsibilities. But he should be getting government support. So... And decent landlords, I mean, the real estate agents, they're going to be bastards in the middle, but decent landlords will be cutting some slack, will be making a deal. Guaranteed. If they're not a decent landlord, look for somewhere else. There's going to be a lot of property on the market soon. Despite us not being able to evict you in 6 months, this is all going on your record, and once 6 months is up, you're going to owe... Is up, you're on your own, big fella. Well... Yep. The email, seen by AM, arrived in Chris's inbox less than an hour after Mr. Morrison announced the moratorium on evictions. It went on to warn tenants they would still owe money after the moratorium, and details such as their ability to access their superannuation will be noted on their rental history. Chris said the email made him feel concerned. This is it, guys. This is all a big mess. This is all a big mess. Now, I understand why they're making all these restrictions. All these restrictions. And we will never know. We will never know if they overreacted or if they did the right thing. We'll only know if they didn't go far enough. That's all we'll know. And we won't know it for months. This is the problem, guys, with putting this... You know, you can no longer evict people. All these agents are going to get worried because all their clients won't have access to the funds that they need. No one's going to win here. You know? Well, and here's the thing: it's more and more people don't have a buffer for 6 months, and that's just the. I think that I just need to realize that that's just the standard now. It's just the standard now in our civilization. People don't have a buffer, and our education system has failed. We're living in just a materialistic civilization now where people are just accumulating more and more crap. They're living hand to mouth, living week to week. I really am hoping that we'll all come out of this. And there needs to be a government push. There needs to be a government education push to allow people to prepare themselves. Rather than, oh, you can get your super. Maybe if people weren't having a bit of their pay garnished every paycheck, all the taxes we have to pay, all these other expenses we have to pay, they would actually be able to put a bit aside themselves and have savings like they did in the past. Because remember, guys, all this stimulus, all this handout, everything, it's not free money. It's not coming out of anywhere, out of thin air. Even if it does, we'll have to pay it back. Just think about how much of your hours you spend working for a year that goes to the state, one way or another. Not even just income tax, all the other bloody taxes people pay. Even a fish you got to pay. So it made me feel a little bit sick as soon as I saw it. Like, especially with everything else going on, the last thing people should be concerned about is a secure roof over their heads, he said. Chris has been assured he'll be able to return to his hospitality job when things get back to normal. Mate, I think that's a bit naive. Honestly, it may not go back to normal. Hospitality job may not be there. You got to prepare. One way or another, you got to find it. Look at other avenues now. Reskill. Even if you're at home alone, you can still reskill. You can still learn new things. But he worries what other issues he will encounter on the other side of the pandemic. No evictions does help. It certainly does. But it also adds stress to, well, what happens after the 6 months, he says. Exactly. You may get a whole lot of people getting turfed out after 6 months. You may have all these properties that'll be essentially worthless during this period. You won't be able to sell them. So that hasn't been clarified by anyone. Well, it has by the real estate. You still certainly owe the money, and you could be in trouble next time you try and find a property to rent. Real estate agents who advise tenants to access their super could face a maximum of 5 years imprisonment and or a fine of $126,000. Agencies could face fines of up to $1.2 million. And yet, when I contacted the Australian Security Investment Commission and advised them of an online scam that is ripping off Australian people, they told me to report to someone else. We don't care. And this was a company that was registered for ASIC. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, they're whatever. Just more rent seekers. ASIC intends to monitor the situation closely, and if contraventions of the licensing requirements of the Corporations Act are found, ASIC will not hesitate to act swiftly to protect vulnerable consumers. So that's the thing, they'll write letters. I don't know. From my own personal dealings with ASIC, trying to protect consumers, I am bitter. And I have a bias. And I'm admitting to that now. Maybe you can make me feel better, guys, and share good stories of where ASIC's helped you out in the comments. Because when I've been chasing people who've owed me like 15 grand and trying to protect consumers through my YouTube channel. Anyway, let me know your experiences in the comments, guys. Cheer me up, please. Or sharing my bitterness. Emails from inner city Melbourne agency Buxton Real Estate told an unknown number of newly unemployed tenants who cannot pay rent to inquire about accessing their superannuation before the agents would even contact the owners of properties to ask for a reduction in the rent. If you're unable to pay rent, please contact your property manager to discuss the documentation you need to provide to us before we contact your owner regarding your situation, said a message sent from Head of Property Management Ray Tolley on Tuesday. In the meantime, we strongly recommend you inquire regarding your eligibility for access to superannuation. For example, other examples of agents compelling renters to access their superannuation as a first resort can be found on social media. Each of the emails could constitute a separate breach of the Act. Nathan Jones, Chief Executive of Buxton Real Estate Group, said the email lists financial options currently available to tenants and is based on federal government advice. It is in an individual's discretion to assess which option is right for them, he said. No. Mummy and Daddy ASIC need to care for us. The government needs to take away all our responsibilities, please. These tenants can't just tell the agents to get stuffed. I'll go somewhere else, or I'll look somewhere else. Or I'll remember this. Or, if you know what you can do. Here's what you can do. If the real estate agent has been a pain, you can pay $12, get the title for your property, find out who actually owns it, and contact them directly. And then what you do is tell them, I tell you what, I know you're probably paying this much to the agent. How about we make a deal? I can't afford to pay you the same rent. I will pay you directly. You cut out the real estate agent, and we'll sign a new contract and have a new deal there. How about that? I get 15% off or 10% off. You get the same money, and we just get rid of that dead weight. What do you think, guys? Do you think that's a solution? Maybe that could be developed online on Facebook. Connecting landlords with tenants directly, getting rid of the middlemen. I'm sure the real estate industry would love that. See, that's something that ASIC could do of value. That's something that could be done directly online. We'll have to see. We'll see. Our focus is to work alongside and maintain positive relationships with all our tenants and landlords at Buxton, particularly during this stressful time. We're doing our best to keep our tenants informed and will continue to assist any experiencing financial distress as much as possible. The statement from the company did not respond to the seriousness of the potential breaches or potential sanctions the company and its agents could face. Yeah, well, we'll see. I think it'd be pretty hard to argue that it was financial advice. Maybe if they're listing out, did you know you had this option from the government? Is that financial advice? What do you think, guys? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Are you in this situation? How are you planning to deal with it? Are you just not going to pay rent and let the cards fall where they may in 6 months' time? Or are you going to talk to your landlord directly? Anyway, thanks all for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and you want to support us, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel here on YouTube. You can also join it on Patreon for a small monthly fee. You can use our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay for your consumer purchases, or Independent Reserve and Kucoin for crypto traders out there. We have merch from HeiseSays and Teespring. We also have PayPal for PayPal donation, or Gold Pass if you want to donate gold to us. Thanks, guys. Have a great day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now.